There's a sentence my wife had been waiting 35 years to say, and when she finally said it, quietly, on a back porch on a Tuesday evening in October, I realized something that stopped me completely. In 35 years of marriage, I had never once asked her what she had given up to be with me. Not once. My name is Mason Parker. I am a retired Air Force veteran. I married a woman from the Philippines in 1989. We raised 2 children in America. We built a home, a life, and what I thought was a shared dream of retirement. And then one evening, she asked me a question I was not prepared to answer. She said, "John, I have spent 35 years building a life in your country. Would you spend the rest of yours helping me rebuild one in mine?" I did not answer her that night, because for the first time in our marriage, I understood that the woman sitting beside me had been carrying something I had never thought to ask about. This is that story. I met my wife Maria in 1988. I was 26 years old, stationed with the Air Force in Okinawa, Japan. A friend talked me into a weekend trip to Cebu in the Philippines. I almost did not go. I had no particular reason to go and no expectation of anything beyond a few days of good food and unfamiliar streets. Maria was 23. She was working at a small hotel near the waterfront, helping support her parents and 2 younger sisters. The first thing I noticed about her was not her appearance. It was the way she laughed. Not the kind of laugh people produce to be polite, the kind that makes everyone in the room feel like they are in on something good. We spent that entire afternoon talking, then dinner, then a long walk before I had to head back to my hotel. When I said goodbye, I remember thinking I was probably never going to see her again. I was wrong about that. We wrote letters for the better part of a year. International phone calls were expensive then. Sometimes we would wait an entire week for one short conversation, but it was enough. About 12 months after that first trip, I flew back to the Philippines, not for a vacation, to see her. By the time I left, we both knew where things were headed. When my enlistment was ending, I asked her to marry me. She said yes. A few months later, she arrived in America. 2 suitcases, a small photo album, a handful of gifts from her family, and a life she was leaving behind. At the time, I did not think about that last part. I was too happy. I thought she was gaining something. It never crossed my mind that saying yes to me also meant saying goodbye to almost everything she had ever known. The years passed the way years do when you are busy living them. We bought a house. We raised 2 children. We drove to soccer games and school concerts and birthday parties. Maria learned to love American life in ways that were genuine and not performed. She celebrated Thanksgiving like she had grown up with it. She baked Christmas cookies with the kids every year. She became an American citizen. She cheered during football games with an enthusiasm that I am still not entirely sure was based on a complete understanding of the rules. She made our house feel like a home. If you had met us 15 years into our marriage, you would have assumed she had lived in America her whole life. That was what I assumed too. What I did not see were the small ways she held on to the life she had left. Every Sunday morning before the rest of us were awake, she called her family in the Philippines. Sometimes I could hear her laughing from 2 rooms away. Other times I would walk past the bedroom and find her sitting quietly with the phone in her lap, wiping her eyes. When she noticed me, she would always smile. "It is nothing," she would say. "I just miss them today." I believed her. Life would move on, and I would forget, until the next Sunday. Every January, after the Christmas decorations came down and the house went quiet, I would notice her standing at the kitchen window with a cup of coffee, watching the snow. One morning, I asked what she was looking at. She smiled without turning around. "The sunshine," she said. I laughed. "There is no sunshine today." "I know," she said, and she laughed too. I thought she was joking. I understand now that she was remembering. For 35 years, I missed that distinction. Not because I did not care about her, because I had never learned to look carefully enough at what I was seeing. Before we get into what finally changed and what our lives look like now, subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. Next week, I am covering the specific financial steps that American seniors need to take before considering a move abroad, the Social Security questions, the Medicare situation, the banking setup, and the visa options that nobody explains clearly until you are already trying to figure them out in the middle of a decision. Subscribe now so that video reaches you before you need it. As retirement got closer, I started paying attention in ways I had not before. I noticed that she still sang Filipino songs to herself in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. I noticed that she kept an old photo album from her childhood, her parents, her sisters, the house she grew up in, and that she looked at it the way most people look at something they are trying not to forget. I noticed that every Christmas she found a way to cook the same dishes her mother had made when Maria was a girl. She had built a beautiful life in America. She had never erased the one she came from. She had been carrying both of them, quietly, for 35 years. Then one afternoon, we were cleaning out the garage before retirement, sorting through old boxes. I opened one marked with her name. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Airmail envelopes, faded with age. From her mother, from her sisters, from friends she had grown up with. I asked if she wanted to throw any of them away. She looked at me almost surprised. "Oh no," she said softly. "I have kept every one." That night, after she had gone to sleep, I found myself thinking about those letters. Before email, before video calls, before any of the technology that makes distance feel smaller, those letters had been her only connection to home. Sometimes they took weeks to arrive, and she had saved every single one. That was when something finally landed. While I had been building a career and raising children and planning for retirement, Maria had been quietly carrying two homes inside of her. She had never asked me to choose between them. She had simply learned to live with both. And for the first time, I started to wonder if retirement was not just asking us where we wanted to live. Maybe it was asking where we both belonged. The evening she finally said it directly, we were sitting on the back porch after dinner. The air had that early chill that always arrived before we were quite ready for it. She pulled her sweater tighter. Then she looked at me. "John," she said, "I have spent 35 years building a life in your country. Would you spend the rest of yours helping me rebuild one in mine?" I opened my mouth to answer and nothing came out. Not because I disagreed, not because I was angry, because in 35 years I had never once asked her what she had given up the day she chose me. I had loved her for all of it. I had just never seen it clearly until that moment. What I felt was not guilt, it was gratitude, mixed with the painful and humbling realization that I had been loved far more generously than I had ever understood. I did not say yes that night. I told her the truth. I said I did not know if I was ready to move halfway around the world. The healthcare worried me. Being far from our grandchildren worried me. The long flights worried me. What happens if one of us gets sick worried me. I said all of that honestly. And then I said something that surprised both of us. I said maybe I've been asking the wrong question this whole time. What if we did not decide today? What if we just went for a few months? No promises, no house, no permanent decisions. Just us, and we see how it feels. She looked at me with an expression I recognized from the first time I asked her to marry me. Quiet, relieved, hopeful. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I would like that," she said. 3 months later, we were in an airport again. Not newlyweds this time. Two people carrying 35 years of shared life, wondering where the next chapter belonged. When we landed in Cebu, I watched Maria walk through the airport terminal. She was not translating signs. She was not searching for familiar words. She was not adapting. For the first time since I had known her, she was simply home. And I understood immediately that I had not come to learn about the Philippines. I had come to finally learn about my wife. The weeks passed faster than I expected. I woke most mornings before anyone else and sat outside with coffee while the neighborhood came to life. Instead of snowplows, I heard roosters. Instead of people rushing past each other to get somewhere, I watched neighbors stop and talk before starting their day. Life did not feel slower because people had less to do. It felt slower because people had decided that each other mattered more than their schedule. One afternoon, Maria's older sister gathered the whole family for lunch. I lost count of how many people arrived. Brothers, sisters, cousins, neighbors who felt like family. Everyone talking at once. I understood maybe every fifth word. I was handed plates of food I could not name and eaten before I could ask. And across that table, I watched Maria laugh in a way I had not seen in years. She was not translating. She was not bridging two worlds. She was simply herself. Completely and entirely herself. I had been married to this woman for 35 years, and I was watching her relax in a way I had never seen before. That was the moment I understood what 35 years of quiet love actually looked like. When the trip ended, I expected her to be sad about leaving. She was peaceful instead. On the flight home, she took my hand. She did not ask me if we were moving. She did not need to. This time, I was the one who asked. "What would it take," I said, "for us to build a life here?" She looked at me the same way she had the day I said yes to everything that followed. She smiled. "We will figure it out together," she said. A year later, we retired to the Philippines. Not because it was less expensive, although it is. Not because the weather is warm, although it is. Not because we were leaving America behind, because we were not. We came because marriage has always been about taking turns carrying each other. For 35 years, Maria had carried my world without complaint. Retirement gave me the chance to carry hers. People ask me sometimes if moving to the Philippines was the best decision I ever made. I always give them the same answer. Moving was not the best decision. Marrying Maria was. Moving here was simply one more way of keeping the promise I made to her all those years ago. And the thing I understand now that I did not understand then is this. There were never just one of us who left home when we got married. There were always two. I just happened to be the last one to realize it. Subscribe to Mason Parker USA and turn on the notification bell. Share this video with someone you know who is navigating retirement alongside a spouse who is given more than they have ever been asked to give. Sometimes the most important retirement decision is not about money or location or logistics. Sometimes it is about finally seeing the person who has been standing beside you the whole time. I will see you in the next one. There is a practical side to this story that I want to address honestly, because I know that for every person watching this who is moved by the emotional journey, there is someone quietly doing the math and wondering whether any of this is actually possible on a fixed retirement income. The answer is yes, and the numbers are more straightforward than most people expect. Our combined Social Security benefits come to just under $3,000 per month. In the United States, that amount created a constant low-level financial pressure that never fully went away. The kind where you are not in crisis, but you are always aware of the edges. In the Philippines, that same $3,000 covers everything. Our rent for a comfortable two-bedroom house in a safe neighborhood is $380 per month. Groceries, eating out most days at local restaurants, utilities, internet, transportation, and Maria's trips to see her family on other islands. All of it combined runs us somewhere between $1,100 and $1,300 per month, depending on the time of year. We are saving money in retirement. After 40 years of working and never quite getting ahead, we are setting money aside every single month. That is not a boast. That is the arithmetic of a place where the cost of living finally matches what a lifetime of honest work actually produces. I want to be clear about the healthcare situation because it is the question I get asked most often and the one that deserves a direct answer. Medicare does not cover us here. We knew that before we came. We purchased international health insurance before we left the United States, a policy that covers serious illness and hospitalization and costs us $160 per month for both of us combined. For routine care, doctor visits, prescription refills, dental work, we pay out of pocket because the costs are low enough that insurance is not necessary for everyday medical needs. Maria's last full checkup with blood work cost $42. My dental cleaning last month cost $18. These are not approximations. These are the actual numbers from actual receipts. The healthcare here is competent, accessible, and priced in a way that does not require you to weigh your health against your bank account. That last part matters more than any specific dollar amount. There is one more thing I want to say, something that has nothing to do with finances or visa paperwork or cost of living comparisons. It is about what happens to a marriage when both people finally feel equally at home. For 35 years, Maria had been generous with me in a way I had not fully recognized. She had learned my language, celebrated my holidays, raised our children inside my culture, and built her entire daily life around a country that was not the one she came from. She did all of that without resentment and without keeping score. What retirement gave us, what moving gave us, was not a cheaper life or a warmer climate. It was balance. For the first time in our marriage, we are both at home in the same place at the same time. I am the one learning the language now. I am the one asking Maria to explain customs and translate conversations and tell me which dish is which at her sister's table. I am the one who is occasionally baffled and occasionally embarrassed and occasionally handed a plate of something unfamiliar and expected to eat it with a smile. And I am the one discovering, 35 years into a marriage I thought I understood completely, that my wife is even more remarkable than I had realized. She built an entire life in a country that was not hers. She did it with grace and patience and a laugh that still makes everyone around her smile. And she waited 35 years without complaint for the chance to show me where she came from. If you have a spouse who came from somewhere else, who left a family, a language, a culture, a whole version of themselves behind to build a life with you, retirement may be your chance to finally ask the question I waited too long to ask. Not where do we want to live, but where do we both belong? Subscribe to Mason Parker USA and turn on the notification bell. I will see you in the next one.